The question about paying taxes to Caesar posed by our Lord in today's Gospel isn't a straightforward one to deal with, and there's more than one reason for that. It isn't a straightforward question, firstly, because of who is asking it and their motives for doing so. Those who ask are merely doing the bidding of the Pharisees, who, we are told, are trying to entangle our Lord. It is a trap, and it's baited with flattery, expecting perhaps a politically subversive answer that will attract the attention of the authorities, or even an answer that subverts religious principles to the authority of those who are rulers. Our Lord's answer doesn't suggest, though, that he has fallen for the trap. Quite clearly, he calls it out and identifies it with some force. It would hardly seem subversive of authority to suggest that the coin, which bears Caesar's likeness and inscription, should be given to Caesar. He also speaks of rendering unto God what is God's, which is a strong statement that there is something greater than temporal authority which needs to be acknowledged. The very answer should have been enough to avoid getting into trouble. But another reason why this question of paying taxes isn't a straightforward one is because our Lord's answer itself is far from straightforward, although it might at first look like it is. It's so much more than simply a short device to avoid being trapped. A quick glance at his answer might suggest that he consigns affairs to two different realms, a sort of temporal and material realm to be under political authority, and a religious one to be under the authority of God. In this sense, doesn't it look like reality has been divided into two, with a clear, neat separation between them? Well, that's certainly a way that this passage has often been read and used. And for many people, it would be useful if it were indeed the case, at least for those whose agenda would be served by it. It could be used as a simple way of encouraging Christians to pay their taxes, or to advocate for an exclusion of faith or anything allied to it from public or political life, and so on. That would certainly suit those hostile to faith in the public square. But even for us at a personal level, does it not often suit us to create two different domains in our lives? A mundane one, which has the stuff of our daily lives, which we would take to be of little religious significance, and a spiritual one, which we take to be the place where we allow those aspects of our life which we are happy to have God's involvement. It's something that we do readily, a device we use to keep God out of the parts of our lives where his presence would be subversive of the status quo. Perhaps dividing reality in two at the political or the individual level is not, though, what's going on with our Lord's answer. The key to understanding what's happening, it seems to me, is precisely to look at our Lord's use of the image, the likeness, the inscription, when speaking about the coin. The coin belongs to Caesar because it has his likeness and his inscription on it. But to speak of image and likeness has, as we know, a strong pedigree in the Jewish tradition, going right back to the first chapter of Genesis. From the account of creation, we know that each human person is made in God's image and likeness. And so the coin may be stamped with Caesar's image, but we are stamped with God's image on each one of us. How different, then, does our Lord's answer to the question now seem against that background? Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Yes, give to him this coin, this finite, relatively low-value coin, which is of little significance. But give your whole self, your whole life to God, because you bear his image. And what this means is that everything in the financial sphere, the social and political sphere, all those transactions, well, they need to be carried out, recognizing who and what we are and whose image it is that we bear. And that means everything in our own personal lives too, including those areas of our lives that we are so quick to separate off from God's influence. Far from dividing and separating aspects of our lives, today's gospel calls us to remember that we are God's, and that our whole lives and everything they contain are to be made an offering to him. The place where we learn to offer ourselves to God completely and without holding back is in the school of prayer. If we want to live one life without fragmentation as an offering to God, then it is in our prayers that we are trained and formed. And that's because when we place ourselves before the Lord in prayer, we are opening up our lives to him and giving him the opportunity to reclaim those parts which are not offered to him, and to help even those parts to become manifestors of his image. And of course, we are also given a superabundance of grace to heal the fragmentation of our lives in this Holy Eucharist, where our Lord, who held back nothing for our sakes, gives himself fully to make us whole.